Howdy everyone, today I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently than what I normally do. Instead of my totally accurate, 100% objective stances and opinions on all things D&D, I'm going to be giving you a slightly subjective take on what I think are the best familiars provided to us in Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting, along with how I would personally use them for my Tamer. Not just that though, I'm going to be giving away a Tamer class starter pack, giving you everything you need so you can start playing the Tamer in your next campaign immediately. You can expect to win both the core rulebook for Heliana's Guide and a set of the animated familiar cards. With these two things, you or your players will have everything necessary to successfully start playing the Tamer class and be able to utilize the fun and unique familiars available to them from the special hunts in this book. All you have to do are these three things. First, you need to be subscribed to this channel. Second, you need to leave a comment including a specific phrase that will be displayed on screen at some point in this video. And third, sadly, you do need to live in the continental United States. This is both due to shipping and legal reasons, so there isn't really too much I can do on that front. This giveaway will run for 1 month after this video goes live, where the winner will be contacted and given 48 hours to respond and claim their prize. If no response is given during that time, another winner will be chosen. All of this will be handled either via Discord or email, with instructions in the reply to the winning comment itself. But it'd be very remiss of me to not show my appreciation and give thanks to the amazing creators of Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting, Loot Tavern, who made this entire giveaway even possible. I can't thank them enough for this incredible opportunity to be able to share their amazing product with all of you guys. I'm gonna be leaving links in the description down below to both their social media and their shop, where you can find everything Heliana related, whether it be more hunts or even accessories. And if you're interested in what you can actually expect to find in this book, check out my review video, which you can find linked here or in the description down below, which will tell you everything you need to know about this book. So what is a Tamer class exactly? Well, in simple terms, the Tamer class is the ultimate utility flexible class in all of D&D. It does everything. It lets you play every single role and fill any single role your party might need, all while doing it all fairly effectively. But not just that, Tamer class is one of the few classes you will not want to multi-class out of. The end caps on abilities are so game-breakingly awesome and powerful that you will absolutely want to make sure you get them, because without them, you're really losing out on so much power and what really makes a Tamer a Tamer. But what does it mean exactly that the Tamer class is this ultimate do-everything class? And simply put, it's very dependent on which familiars or companions you choose to have on your team, because depending on which familiars that you choose to use and how you decide to level them up and strengthen them, your Tamer can essentially play any single role they want. Frontline, middle line, backline, support, utility, healing, anything. It does so much, all while being the same basic class with the same basic features. Only thing you're switching out, as I said, are those companions, and they play the biggest role in your success as a Tamer. Now, in spite of all of that, the Tamer class can also be a little confusing because of how technical and crunchy it is at the very beginning. I would highly recommend having a bookmark on page 198, as you will be referencing this table over and over throughout your Tamer career. Not just that, but this table makes it super convenient and super easy to manage and navigate through the different bonuses and improvements each of your companions will have and what level companions you can even tame. But enough of the summary of what the Tamer is. Let's break down the actual class itself and the different features and what they all mean essentially. So here are the main key takeaways when you create a Tamer. First, you have a D8 as your hit die. Second, you get to choose between intelligence, wisdom, or charisma as your spell casting modifier when you create this class. Third, you can use light armor, medium armor, or shield, and when it comes to weapons, you can only use simple weapons or nets. After that, it's just creating a character just like normal. And now let's talk about the different features of the Tamer itself. The Tamer class is very front heavy in terms of how much comprehension is necessary to properly play this class. But I'll break it down very simply for you. Our first ability, Pocket Familiar, essentially just breaks down that you're going to be using familiars to do the majority of your work and damage in this campaign. But to capture these familiars, you need to use a vessel, some type of object or container to actually capture these monsters or companions. A vessel is essentially anything you want to use but it has to have a certain amount of gold value dumped into it before it can actually be used to capture your next companion. And the gold value necessary to capture each monster is very easily calculated by referencing the table on page 198, or just multiplying the CR of the monster by 100. I would highly recommend that you always create vessels at the highest level possible that you can capture, because there is no point in carrying weaker vessels, because if you try to use these to capture a monster that is too high level, it's automatically going to fail, and it's gonna really suck that that monster is gonna get away and you won't be able to add it to your party. Pocket Familiar also goes into the other aspects of utilizing your familiar, like summoning them, how to actually utilize them in combat, what rest looks like for your companions, how you can equip them with different items, and even how outfitting them with armor works. But essentially breaks down into takes an action to summon your monster. You can then command your companion with either an action or a bonus action every single turn. When you long rest, our companions also all benefit from a long rest as long as they have at least 1 HP, and you can even give your companion either weapons or armor if you train them in those proficiencies. The next feature we get at level 1 is Soulbound. This essentially breaks down to telling us that each of your companions also gets death saving throws, meaning they can straight up die and have to be revived with a spell like Revivify, or you can stabilize them, putting them back in their vessel where you can heal them over time. Soulbound also goes into detail saying that you essentially work like a paladin for your companions, giving you a small pool of hit points that you can restore to your companions between each long rest. The next feature we have is Monster Training. This essentially breaks down into the different bonuses and buffs that you can give your companions as you level up in the Tamer class. Every level after level 1 in the Tamer class lets you do one additional bonus or one buff that you can add to each of your companions from the list provided in the book. This can be anything from increasing their movement speed, increasing their ability score, or even training them how to use weapons and armor. And these improvements also apply retroactively should you capture your companion later on in your Tamer career. So like I said, I highly recommend you reference the table on page 198 very often when you tame a new familiar, because it will tell you all the different bonuses and benefits that that familiar gets based on its CR and your Tamer level. I also highly recommend that if you're utilizing the different familiars provided in Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting, that you put those familiars inside of card protectors, and on the back of that card, you write down which improvements that you actually gave to that familiar. It helps make tracking the improvements so much easier. The next ability we get at level 1 is Tame Creature. This essentially just breaks down and explains how actually taming a creature works, what the restrictions are, and what they lose when you tame them, on top of the conditions required to actually tame them. At level 2, we start to get our first spell slots. A Tamer class is a half caster, so it works like every other half caster out there, with one key difference being that your spell focus can be the vessel used to summon your companions. The next ability we get is Bolster. This essentially works like a super powerful healing word that we can utilize on our companion specifically. So long as the companion is within 100 feet of us and we're holding their vessel, we can expend a single spell slot to heal them for 2d4 plus our spell casting modifier ability. The next ability we get at level 2 is Psychic Bond. This essentially turns all of our companions into regular familiars like a wizard's familiar. We can swap senses with them and utilize their senses to do extra scouting or do other type of reconnaissance, so long as they're within 100 feet of us. And should any of your companions have known how to cast spells before you tame them, you can even add all those spells to your spell list now because of this feature. Not just that though, any spell that has a range of touch or self can also be cast on your companion at range so long as you're holding onto their vessel. Moving on to level 3, we get Pocket Family. This essentially just tells us, hey, at different levels, you're gonna be able to train more and more companions, letting you have more of them on your roster at a moment's notice. I will note though that as written, when you try to tame a new familiar and you're already at your maximum count, you have to give up one of your previous familiars to do so. I personally don't like that, and I would definitely recommend talking with your DM about creating some type of system where you can store old familiars, whether it be in a base, a house, back home, or some type of ranch. That way you're not losing out on these familiars and lose a lot of the flexibility that comes with playing a Tamer. Also at level 3, we get to pick our subclass between Leader, Infuser, Necromancer, or Splicer. I'll go into more details of those here in a little bit. At level 4, we get our first ASI or ability score improvement, and it is important to note that every time we get an ASI in this class, each of your companions get one additional hit die automatically. But aside from that, ASIs work just as they do for every other class. You either improve an ability score or you gain a feat. At level 5, we get the multi-attack feature. Not for us specifically, and we don't give our companions multi-attack, but if they had multi-attack before we tame them, they now get to actually utilize that multi-attack when they attack. Also at level 5, we get the ability Malleable Presence. What essentially this ability is saying is we can have our companion either taunt a monster using the aggressive behavior or make itself seem unassuming and not the main target by using Cautious. Both of these presences can only be used against one target, and the target gets a wisdom saving throw to see if they're actually affected by it. But sadly, we only get to use this ability one time between each long rest. Now at level 6, we get two new abilities, Alpha Strike and Willful Blows. Alpha Strike essentially means when you use the action to summon your companion, that same action can also be used to make them attack on that same turn. While Willful Blows turns all of our companions' attacks into magical attacks, letting them overcome non-magic immunity. At level 13, we get the ability Switcheroo, meaning we can switch places with one of our companions so long as they're within 100 feet of us using our reaction, swapping the target of the attack. We can do this a number of times equal to our spell casting ability modifier. At level 17, we get Magnificent Presence. This is essentially a stronger version of Malleable Presence that we got earlier, but instead of it only applying to one target, with Magnificent Presence, it applies to a whole area around your companion, meaning it can taunt everyone around it, or it can be super unassuming at a much greater range. It's also important to note that Malleable Presence and Magnificent Presence all have different conditions, meaning you can use both of them at least once between each long rest. And finally, at level 20, we get the most powerful, the absolutely game-breaking ability that makes the Tamer so amazing. Summon the Horde. This lets you summon up to 3 companions at once and command all at once using the same action or bonus action. This is absolutely ridiculously bonkers, the amount of power that this gives you as a tamer, especially if you have a bunch of really powerful tames with you. But now let's go into the different subclasses, starting with Leader. The strongest aspect of the Leader subclass is the fact that it makes you feel like you're multi-classing into 4 different classes all at once while staying true and pure as a tamer. And the first multi-class we get is at level 3, Inspire. We essentially become a bard for our companions, letting us inspire them with an increasing inspiration die as we level up. Also at level 3, we get a whole bunch of new spells that we can add to our spell list automatically as a leader. A lot of these spells do exactly what you would hope, a lot of support and utility spells for our companions. And at level 7, we get to multi-class into Fighter essentially, giving each one of our companions an action surge. Now, it is important to note that each companion can only action surge one time between each long rest. Each companion gets its own individual charge of this. And we get 2 action surges per companion once we hit level 18. Our 10th level feature, Leader's Fortitude, lets us multi-class into Rogue for our companions, letting us use a reaction to essentially do Uncanny Dodge, cutting any damage our companion takes in half every round. And finally, at level 14, we get a multi-class back into Tamer, but essentially as a higher level Tamer with Combo. You get to pull out 2 companions at once and utilize them. And when we summon 2 companions using this feature, as long as they're both attacking the same target, they automatically get advantage on their attacks. And should you combine this with the Summon the Horde ability at level 20 for the Tamer class, your Tamer is going to be an absolute monster on the battlefield, doing anything they want, controlling it however they want. The next subclass available to us is the Infuser, and the first thing we get at level 3 is Infuse. We get to infuse each of our companions with one of 4 different elemental damage types, which they get to add on their first attack every single turn. This additional damage that they get increases as we level up in the Tamer class, starting at a D4, ending at a D10. Also at level 3, we get a bunch of new spells that we can add to our Tamer that are all essentially a bunch of elemental buffs that we can add to our companions. Our level 7 feature as an Infuser is Elemental Discharge. This gives us essentially 4 new spells that each of our companions can cast depending on whichever element they're currently infused with. Just like with the Action Surge for the Leadership subclass, each of our companions can use Elemental Discharge one time per companion, and at level 18, they can do it twice. Our 10th level feature as an Infuser is giving our companion both resistance and potentially immunity to whatever element they're currently infused with. However, to give our companion immunity to that element, we have to use a reaction to do so. but we can only grant this immunity once between each long rest. The resistance is always. And finally, our level 14 ability for the Infuser is Unstable Fusion. We get to infuse our companions with 2 different elemental types, meaning they have double the resistances, double the opportunity to have immunities, and 2 different elemental discharges that they can use on their turn. We can also only use this ability 1 time per long rest. Moving on to the Necromancer, our first ability is the Life Hack ability, which is essentially a weaker version of Armor of Akathis. We have our companion take necrotic damage, gaining temporary hit points for that amount, while also dealing that amount of damage to its target. The damage that it deals and the amount of temporary hit points that it gets increases from a D4 all the way up to a D10 as you level up in your Tamer class. We get 2 more abilities as a level 3 Necromancer or Tamer. The first being new necromancy spells, which are exactly what you would think they'd be, while the second one is called Post-Mortem. It allows us to tame creatures that have died within 1 minute, meaning we have way more options to tame a creature, especially if a stray arrow happens to kill them while we're trying to weaken them. Not just that though, but it also lifts some of the biggest restraints that we have when it comes to taming creatures. We can now tame humanoids and giants that have previously died, converting them into undead monster types should we succeed on the tame. However, if we do fail on the tame for a dead creature, we cannot res them any more times. The only way to try it again is to bring that creature back to life and then murder it 1 more time. Our level 7 feature is Animate Dead, allowing us to cast the spell Animate Dead 1 time per day for free. However, the biggest limitation of this is that you only get 1 free undead minion. You don't get 4 like the normal spell casting of it does. But on the plus side, once we hit level 18, the stat blocks we use, depending on whichever body we're raising, changes to a Ghast or a Skeleton Minotaur. We can also command our Animated Dead with the same action we use to command our companion. So that's a little bit of action economy cheating that we get with that. Our level 10 ability as a Necromancer is Enervate. This lets us either take damage ourselves to heal our companion or have our companion take damage to heal us. This essentially lets us heal our companions or ourselves through a different means without having to use any type of spell slots, swapping health between one or the other. While our level 14 ability is called Aura of Death, our companion creates a little AoE bubble around them where they can inflict 4d8 necrotic damage on 1 target should they fail a Constitution saving throw every single round for 1 minute. And should our companion be reduced to 0 hit points while they have the Aura of Death up, they actually don't die. They go down to 1 HP and they stay there. However, they do gain 1 automatic fail to death save. They can do this up to 3 times before they outright die. But if they're an undead monster type, then they can do this 5 times before they outright die. And for their last subclass available to us, we have the Splicer subclass. This is essentially Apather from StarCraft 2 if you've played that. The first ability we get at level 3 is Augment. We get a certain amount of splicing points as we level up, which we can use to customize and chimerize all of our companions so long as we have the appropriate amount of Splicer points, which are shared amongst all of them. Also level 3, we get a whole bunch of Splicer spells, which do exactly what you hope for. Let us become chimeras ourselves or turn our companions into chimeras. At level 7, we get the ability Modular Upgrades. This essentially works like with the Infuser. We get to implement new organs inside of each one of our companions, which gives them a brand new ability, which a lot work just like spells. And just like Elemental Discharge, all these modular upgrades can only be used 1 time, but at level 18, we can use them twice. At level 10, we get the ability Battlefield Harvester. This lets our companions consume the body and the power of any corpse remaining on the battlefield, granting either resistance to 1 damage type or immunity to 1 condition, excluding exhaustion, to all of our companions, no matter if they ate the body or not. The resistances and immunities that your companions can gain are only the ones provided by that body that it had while it was alive. And obviously, we can only use this once between each long rest. And now we have the magnum opus of the Splicer subclass, Adrenal Overload. This turns our little companions into huge monsters just like Gnar from League of Legends, giving them increased weight, increased size, a bunch of temporary hit points, an extra limb, extra strength, and multi-attack with that extra limb, using it to either slash the enemies, beat them up, or even pierce them. However, after the minute expires, your companion will fall unconscious for 1d4 hours and will gain 2 levels of exhaustion. And obviously we can only do this once per long rest. And now let's talk about the different companions that you can get in Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting in the order they become first available to you. The Gelatinooze. It's an ooze type monster. Its size ranges from small to huge as soon as you manage to tame it and depending on what levels you give it. It has a very balanced playstyle, having very strong defense and offense that it can provide to your team. Its most notable abilities are its reactive mutations, phalanx, and turtle. To obtain this familiar, you and your party will need to navigate through a dungeon crawl type quest where you will explore an abandoned dragon lair that is being renovated by a group of goblin contractors. After finally reaching the depths of this lair, you will need to survive the mother lode itself. Doing that, you will be able to obtain the Gelatinooze. Sunsnacker, a Fate type monster. Its size ranges from small to huge as soon as you tame it. The playstyle for the Sunsnacker is a very aggressive frontliner and bruiser type playstyle. Its most notable abilities are the Sunstep ability, its Sun Eater ability, and its Eye Tyrant. Obtaining the Sunsnacker will pose quite the challenge for a lot of tamers and their parties due to the unique challenge this specific hunt asks of you guys. Minimic, a monstrosity type monster. Its size ranges from small to large as soon as you tame it. The playstyle for the Minimic revolves a lot more around recon and ambushing type play. Its most notable abilities are its shape-changing ability, regurgitation, and being able to grow to a large size category. Obtaining this familiar should be quite the interesting journey, not just because of the wacky adventure this quest is in itself, but because of the moral dilemma you might find yourself in while doing so. Dragonling. It's a dragon type monster. Its size ranges from small to large once you tame it. The Dragonling lends itself to a more tank/bruiser playstyle when you're using it in your party. Its most notable abilities are its metallic character, being able to grow to a large size category, and its wing attack. Obtaining this little guy can be quite the challenge, with the key to success lying purely on you and your party's ability to stay both vigilant and observant of your environment and foes. Hyphan, a plant type monster. Its size ranges from tiny to small. In terms of playstyle for your party, it is a lot more of a control and utility type familiar. Its most notable skills are its puffball ability, its fungal fruit, and multi-help. The true challenge for attaining this familiar is the fact that you and your party will be faced with a battle against both time and other intelligent monsters. Drawn out battles are always difficult, but in this case specifically, indecision has a high chance of ending your tamer career early. Aboling, an aberration type monster. The Aboling doesn't have any traits that naturally make it change its size category, meaning it will always be a tiny cute little buddy for you. In terms of what role this Aboling will play in your party, its playstyle is a lot more utility based. Its most notable abilities are Detect Thoughts, Fortified Mind, and Enthrall. To add this squishy little lad to your roster of familiars, you and your party are going to have to learn how to handle both a battle of attrition and stealing your minds from all sorts of external influences, while at the same time knowing how to navigate unfavorable terrain. And remember, this job isn't truly done until there are no traces left. Peeper, aberration type monster. Its size ranges from tiny to small after you tame it. In terms of the role for your party that Peeper will have, it will have a mid-range damage, utility, and support playstyle. Its most notable abilities are its Cone of Encouragement, its Eye Rays, and the Slowing Ray. If you're a fan of Demon Slayer or Rick and Morty, the journey to obtain this familiar will be a lot of fun. Depending on how your DM chooses to narrate this quest, this is either going to be a wacky adventure or it'll be an intense one with lots of Inception booms. Rakitten, a fiend type monster. Its size ranges from tiny to large. In terms of its role in your party, it is an anti-magic DPS monster. Its most notable abilities are Limited Anti-Magic, Weave Bender, and Wind Strike. Now, I know I've said that many of the quests needed to obtain these familiars can be very dangerous for you and your party, but this hunt specifically is no joke if you and your party don't prepare well. Make sure everyone has at least a dagger ready for this fight. Mechakobold, a construction type monster. Its size ranges from tiny to small. In terms of the role that this little guy will play in your party, it is pure damage and chaos. Its most notable abilities are easily Pack Tactics, Dino Boom, and Proto Attunement. getting your hands on this goofy little guy is actually quite simple and straightforward in terms of what's expected of you and your party. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy though. In fact, it's going to be one of the most chaotic and dynamic quests you'll ever go on. It's both equally a silly, goofy quest while also being a Michael Bay production with Fast and Furious levels of nonsense. Tarling, an elemental type monster. Its size ranges from tiny to gargantuan once you tame it. In terms of what role it will play in your party, it is an anti-magic glass cannon damage dealer. Its most notable abilities are Refractive Exterior, Siege Monster, and Arcane Animation. I hope you and your party are prepared for your own Jurassic Park-like adventure to get yourself your very own Tarling. Just make sure as you're on this quest, you read all the notes left behind. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in quite the sticky situation. Dire Bunny, an aberration type monster. Its size doesn't change. It will always be a tiny and cute, vicious little bunny in your party after you tame it. In terms of the playstyle that this bunny will play in your roster, it will do burst damage and work as a great interrogator for you. Its most notable abilities are Sneak Attack, Grasping Bone Type, and Zone of Retributive Truth. If you're a fan of a particular brand of British comedy movies, then this quest will feel very familiar and be quite the journey. And if you don't know what I'm referencing or talking about, please act like you do so I feel less sold. Now, before we jump into ranking the different familiars we just went through, let me explain to you what each rank really means for these familiars. S-rank familiars are familiars that are always good, must have, absolutely can't go without because they're that powerful. They're always applicable and will always be useful no matter what you do. There's almost no wrong way to build them. But if you build them right, then they're even more powerful and the greatest part of your team of companions. A-rank are familiars that are incredibly powerful, but they're just not that super broken. Everything you need, but it's like a little bit more, and they would be absolutely broken. So these are much more balanced, a lot more fair, and still incredibly powerful, should be absolutely on the top of your list of must-haves. B-rank companions are companions that I think are a little bit more situational. These require a little bit more setup or aren't always applicable in almost every single situation. They're still incredibly powerful. They're not my first picks by any means. When it comes to the C-tier companions, it's not that they're bad, it's just a matter of I think they require very specific situations to actually be genuinely useful, even if you try to build them as strongly as you can. Again, they're not bad companions. Every single one of the companions are applicable and are very good at what they do. However, with my playstyle specifically and the type of campaigns I find myself in more often than not, I just find myself not really needing them or not being able to fully utilize them in the campaigns I find myself in. But that doesn't mean in your campaign, they can't be a little bit more powerful. Now let's start with the first companion we can reasonably get in Heliana's as a tamer, the Gelatinooze. The Gelatinooze is an easy A-tier companion. It is absolutely amazing. It has great defense and great offense stats, making it an overall well-rounded companion, especially at the fact that you can get it so early in your tamer career. It's missing just a little bit of oomph that makes it overall universally useful, but it's still absolutely amazing and a must-have, guaranteed on your roster. Next, we have the Sunsnacker. Now, in spite of the fact that it is a fairly strong frontline bruiser type companion, I sadly have to give it a C-tier rating. My biggest problem with the Sunsnacker is the fact that radiant damage isn't overtly prevalent in every single campaign, and its main abilities are most useful either in a super bright environment or in a super dark environment, making it very situational when you can actually utilize all of its power. I don't like ranking it this low, but I just find myself not finding it the most useful in every single campaign. Early on, it's definitely a good choice. It's the type of companion that I would replace as soon as I get something better. Speaking of something slightly more powerful, we have the Minimic. The Minimic is very useful. It has absolutely great recon, letting you use it as a table or a mug or anything inside of any type of secret meeting, letting you eavesdrop perfectly in the most stealthy way possible while being 100 feet away. Not just that though, but you can also utilize it as mobile cover. If you increase its size to the large category, you can turn it into a table, flip it over on its side, and have cover anywhere you go, easily making this a B-tier companion. Absolutely useful in the right campaigns, but just situational enough that it isn't super useful in every campaign. And now let's move on to the Dragonling. The Dragonling is absolutely amazing. The fact that it can become a large category by the time you're level 13 means you now have a flying mount this early into the game, regardless of you getting any type of flying carpet or flying broom. This is absolutely game changing, having that type of mobility this early. Not just that though, but the fact that you can have adaptive damage resistances and different types of breath weapons every single turn, wing attack and multi-attack this early on a dragon, it is absolutely amazing. There is almost no situation where I wouldn't find it useful. This is an easy A tier type companion. The only reason it's not S tier is that the base red Dragonling is a little bit more powerful in terms of its raw damage at the beginning, while the Dragonling takes a lot more levels before it becomes something truly monstrous. Moving on to our next companion, the Hyphan. This companion is super useful. The fact that it has such good crowd control and utility abilities can't be undervalued. However though, the biggest flaw of the Hyphan companion in my opinion is the fact that it requires a lot of setup to properly utilize its abilities. If you're getting surprised often or doing a lot of traveling, then you won't always get all the time necessary to properly set up the battlefield to really utilize its abilities. But if you are given time to prepare, then this companion is immensely more powerful. So because of that, it has to be ranked B tier. When you have the right circumstances, easy A. But otherwise, a solid B. It is very useful and you can still set up during an encounter itself, but you just miss out on a lot of the surprise and control aspects of it. For our next companion, we have the Aboling. Sadly, I really don't feel like the Aboling is anywhere near as powerful as the rest of the companions in this list. I don't like that the hunt to get him makes him out to be super powerful and very useful, absolutely amazing with all the different aspects and things you have to juggle in that encounter. But outside of that fight, it really becomes evident that a lot of its abilities really only shine in social encounters and political intrigue type campaigns. I personally hate playing the face in my group, so because of that, I have to rank the Aboling C. I don't want to be the face and I don't want to handle all the social interactions. I would rather support my party from the back. However, if you are playing a little bit more of the face of your group, this is easily a B. Moving on to our next companion, we have the Peeper. Now, just like the Hyphan, the Peeper does a lot of utility and control of the battlefield. However, a key difference is the Peeper doesn't need a lot of setup to be able to utilize all of its control. On the other hand though, it does have a lot more limited usages of its control and utility aspects. So because of that, it will also be ranked B tier. Moving on to the next companion, we have the Rakitten. The Rakitten is honestly mind-boggling with its immense power and utility, all baked into one that it can do essentially for free every single round. Its anti-magic capabilities in its high burst damage is absolutely mind-boggling that they put all this inside of one creature. So because of that, this is quite easily an S tier companion, an absolutely must have, always useful, always can be utilized in any single party composition. You can never go wrong having a Rakitten with you, especially if you don't have any main casters to cast Counterspell. But I can see an argument if you are using the new rules provided for 5th edition in 2024, where a lot of monster stat blocks are moving away from using spells but are making everything abilities, then the Rakitten loses a little bit of its edge, but it would only drop it to an A tier at the lowest. It is still an absolutely must have, even for those rare situations where you are genuinely fighting a magic caster, because this companion will completely protect you and whoever is near them. Next, we have the Mechakobold. Now, just like the Rakitten, there is almost no situation I can think of where you wouldn't want a Mechakobold in your party. It has great AoE, it can attune to a magic item, which increases its power significantly depending on which magic item you actually give it, and it has pack tactics, quite easily the most powerful and absolutely game-breaking ability in all of D&D. Now, I understand that it does also have sunlight sensitivity, so pack tactics will be canceling that out, but in the situations where you aren't having the Mechakobolds fight in sunlight, it just increases its power by so much. And again, I can't stress enough how powerful being able to attune one of your companions to a magic item truly is. So again, quite easily another S tier companion, absolute must have for any campaign. And if you want to talk about out of combat situations, the fact that your Mechakobold will always try to help, and should it fail, it causes something absolutely disastrous, is bound to lead to so many many fun and memorable moments at your table. So again, even in social situations, the Mechakobold is an absolute must-have. Our second to last companion is the Tarling. Just like the Rakitten, it has amazing anti-magic abilities, which makes it an absolute powerhouse. On top of the fact that it can grow all the way up to a gargantuan size, making it a siege monster, letting you attack any building and break your way through any structure. So when you combo in the siege monster, the high damage, the anti-magic, and everything else with the Tarling, it is an absolute powerhouse and definitely an A tier companion. Only reason it isn't S tier is because its anti-magic capabilities are a little bit more situational compared to the Rakitten, so it isn't as universally overpowered, but it is still an absolute top tier A companion. I would still highly recommend you add this to your party no matter what. Now, I know the Tarling is a little bit of a glass cannon, but you can also easily circumnavigate this by carrying a bunch of corpses in your bag of holding, letting it reanimate into those, giving it a bunch of temporary hit points on the go. And now let's talk about our final companion, the bonus monster, the bonus companion card that you will get if you win this giveaway, the Dire Bunny. The Dire Bunny is an absolute monster in every sense of the word. It is super cute and just as deadly, and it has sneak attack. It is essentially a rogue that can cast spells. It makes it so great and easily, if you know me, anything that is resembling a rogue, automatic S tier. It has sneak attack, it has grasping bone titan, which is an amazing AoE damage spell that also does control all in one package. Oh my god, the Dire Bunny is just so powerful and so irreplaceable in your party. But that's not the only major benefit the Dire Bunny is giving you. If you're using the crafting rules provided to you in Heliana's, the Dire Bunny even gives you a bunch of additional bonuses to your enchanting checks when you're trying to craft magic items yourself, meaning you're gonna have an even easier chance to actually make every magic item you could ever dream of for both you and your party. Again, making an absolutely irreplaceable companion for your party. And now I bet you're wondering, if I had to pick out of these 13 companions, which 6 would I add to my roster? It is quite easy without a doubt the Dire Bunny, the Rakitten, the Mechakobold, the Gelatinooze, the Dragonling, and the Minimic. With these 6 companions, I can't think of almost a single situation outside of pure social encounters where I won't have some type of option or solution by utilizing one of these guys. So if you found this video helpful and enjoyable, give this video a like and let me know in the comments down below if you agree with my rankings for these familiars, and if you don't, how would you rank them instead? The next major project I'm gonna be working on is a video explaining my thought process on how I go about homebrewing NPCs and monsters for my campaign from the ground up with 4 very special examples. So if you're interested in homebrewing NPCs or monsters for your campaign and you want a video explaining how to do so, make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss when I release that video. But yeah, see you guys next time.